I've heard it goes like this. The fourth, the fifth.
Sometimes, the most beautiful songs are born from the deepest struggle. Leonard Cohen spent 5 years wrestling with a song that would change music forever. 80 verses, countless rewrites, a record label that called it worthless. But across an ocean and a generation later, a young artist named Jeff Buckley would hear something different, something that would transform both their legacies. This is the story of Hallelujah, how one man's spiritual quest became another's earthly masterpiece, and how the most covered song in modern history almost never saw the light of day. Every song has a story. Welcome to Untold Music Legends. Leonard Cohen sits alone in his room at the Royalton Hotel. Notebook in hand, he stares at scattered pages. Each page shows crossed-out verses, fragments of melody, biblical imagery mixed with raw human emotion. He's banging his head against the wall. The 50-year-old poet sits in his underwear torturing himself over the lyrics. This isn't writer's block. This is artistic obsession. He's written more than 80 verses for this one song. Each draft draws from King David's Psalms, Samson and Delilah, his own broken relationships. Each revision brings him closer to something he can't quite name. Leonard Cohen's career had reached a low point in 1984. He had been out of the spotlight for years. His collaboration with Phil Spector had been a disaster. His relationship with Suzanne Elrod was over. He was 50 years old in an industry that worshipped youth. But Cohen persists, driven by something larger than commercial success. He later explains, "If I knew where songs came from, I would go there more often." In June 1984, Cohen enters Quadrasonic Sound Studios in New York with producer John Lissauer. The control room hums with synthesizers and modern equipment. Together they create various positions. An album featuring a song that blends the sacred with the profane in ways no one has attempted before. Cohen describes his creation. This world is full of conflicts and full of things that cannot be reconciled. But there are moments when we can reconcile and embrace the whole mess. And that's what I mean by Hallelujah. Columbia Records president Walter Yetnikoff calls Cohen to his Manhattan office. The meeting takes place in a corner office overlooking the city. Yetnikoff sits behind a massive desk covered with gold records and industry awards. The meeting lasts minutes. The verdict is swift and brutal. "Look, Leonard, we know you're great, but we don't know if you're any good," Yetnikoff tells him. Columbia refuses to release various positions in the United States. The album containing Dance Me to the End of Love, If It Be Your Will, and Hallelujah isn't considered worthy of the American market. The song that will one day be called a masterpiece faces rejection before most people ever hear it. But halfway around the world, a Welsh musician from the Velvet Underground is about to discover something in Cohen's forgotten song that will change everything. In 1990, John Cale attends a Leonard Cohen concert at the Beacon Theater in New York. His friend, author Larry Sloman, had recommended the show. The historic venue fills with Cohen's devoted followers. Among the songs Cohen performs is an obscure track from an album most Americans have never heard. Cale sits in the ornate theater, mesmerized. He later tells people, "I was really an admirer of his poetry. It never let you down. There's a timelessness to it." A few months later, Cale's phone rings in his downtown apartment. The French magazine Les in Rock wants him to appear on a tribute album for Cohen. The album will be called I'm Your Fan, a play on Cohen's I'm Your Man. Cale remembers that haunting song from the Beacon Theater. He calls Larry Sloman. "Can you ask Leonard if I can have some lyrics for that song?" He gives Sloman his fax number. The next morning, Cale wakes up to find his apartment floor covered with fax pages. 15 pages of verses sprawl across his wooden floor. Cohen has sent him everything: biblical references, personal confessions, spiritual yearning, carnal desire. Cale sits at his kitchen table, studying the pages. He explains, "A lot of them were really special to Leonard. They spoke about religion in a very personal way, in a way that wouldn't work with me. So, I picked out the verses that I thought were cheeky or mischievous. Cale strips away Cohen's synthesizers. He removes some of the religious imagery. Behind his piano, he creates something entirely new. Just voice and keys, raw and honest. His version promotes a message of soberness and sincerity that contrasts with Cohen's dispassionate tone. The 1991 tribute album I'm Your Fan comes and goes with little fanfare. But somehow, a copy ends up in a small East Village apartment. Jeff Buckley cat-sits for a friend named Janine in Brooklyn when he discovers the tribute album. The 24-year-old musician knows Cale better than Cohen. He's drawn to the album to hear what the Velvet Underground founder might do with these songs. Struck by Cale's spare vocal and piano arrangement, Buckley decides to include Hallelujah in his repertoire. He begins performing it at the Sign, a Café, on Street Marks Place in Manhattan. What Buckley does with Cohen's words will turn a forgotten song into a modern anthem, but his interpretation will shock even Cohen himself. The tiny venue barely holds 30 people. Exposed brick walls and dim lighting create an intimate atmosphere. Jeff Buckley sits alone on a small stage with a borrowed electric guitar. His voice floats through the cramped space. He covers everyone from Nina Simone to Led Zeppelin. But when he reaches Hallelujah, magic happens. The rowdy Gen X crowd falls silent. Many who attend these shows become especially moved by his Hallelujah. Buckley sings it differently each night, but he always emphasizes the simmering sexual tension of the verses Cale had selected. Steve Berkowitz, an A&R executive at Columbia Records, witnesses one of these performances. He sits at a small table, nursing a coffee. From that very first time I heard his version, it was basically as we know it now, fully formed in the way he would deliver it. This tempo, this pace. And, like most songs he did, it was his immediately. Buckley's Sign, A performances make his name in New York. They win him a recording deal with Columbia Records in 1992. Ironically, the same label that had rejected Cohen's original. Buckley sees something in Cohen's lyrics that others have missed. He explains to the Dutch magazine Oor, whoever listens carefully to Hallelujah will discover that it is a song about sex, about love, about life on earth. The Hallelujah is not a homage to a worshipped person, idol or god, but the Hallelujah of the orgasm. It's an ode to life and love. Buckley admits to hoping that Cohen wouldn't hear his version in case the master was upset at his interpretation. In 1994, Buckley enters Bearsville Studios in the Catskill Mountains. The rustic studio sits surrounded by woods, its wooden walls lined with vintage equipment. Producer Andy Wallace works beside him at the massive mixing console. Buckley experiments extensively with arrangements and recording techniques. He finds the recording process contrary to his improvisational performance style. Buckley's magnificent, soaring voice radically alters the feel of the song. Where Cohen and Cale sang the words with experience and perseverance, this rising star delivers the lyrics with swooning emotion. His voice moves between fragility and strength. Glenn Hansard, Buckley's close friend, later explains, "He gave us the version we hoped Leonard would emote, and he wasn't afraid to sing it with absolute reverence. Jeff sang it back to Leonard as a love song to what he achieved, and in doing so, Jeff made it his own." The album Grace receives critical acclaim but modest sales. Then, 3 years later, tragedy strikes, and suddenly the world discovers what they had been missing. May 29, 1997. Memphis. Jeff Buckley wades into the Wolf River. Fully clothed, he sings Led Zeppelin's Whole Lotta Love. While awaiting his band's arrival from New York to work on his second album, Buckley drowns in the murky water. He's 30 years old. But rather than ending the story, Buckley's passing begins a new chapter. After his death, sales of Grace increased dramatically. The album that had sold only 175,000 copies during his lifetime suddenly takes on new meaning. Buckley's version escapes from his cult fan base and gains mainstream attention. Music critics begin calling it definitive, New artists start covering his interpretation rather than Cohen's original. In December 2008, Hallelujah achieves something unprecedented. It reaches number 2 on the UK singles chart, Buckley's version competing with Alexandra Burke's X Factor performance. Both versions chart simultaneously, with Leonard Cohen's original at number 36. For the first time, all 3 major versions appear on the same chart. Meanwhile, Leonard Cohen experiences his own resurrection. Years later, he reflects on his creation's journey with characteristic wit. There are certain ironic and amusing sidebars. Because the record that it came from, Sony wouldn't put it out. They didn't think it was good enough. So, there's a certain mild sense of revenge that arose in my heart. The song that Columbia rejected transforms into Cohen's signature piece. Concert audiences sing along to every word. Critics call it his masterpiece. The Canadian government honors him for his contribution to the arts. In 2004, Buckley's version ranks number 259 on Rolling Stone's The 500 Greatest Songs of All Time. In 2014, it enters the American Library of Congress's National Recording Registry. Cohen gains new recognition too. Following his death in November 2016, Hallelujah experiences renewed interest. It reappears on international singles charts, including entering the American Billboard Hot 100 for the first time. Both creators achieved the recognition they deserved. Today, Hallelujah exists beyond any single interpretation. Street musicians play it in subway stations. Choirs sing it in churches. Pop stars perform it at award shows. More than 300 recorded versions exist, each finding new meaning in Cohen's words. The song proves that the greatest art transforms through interpretation. Cohen's spiritual wrestling becomes Cale's architectural blueprint. Cale's blueprint becomes Buckley's emotional cathedral. Each version honors the last, while creating something new. Leonard Cohen lived to see his creation become a modern standard. He toured the world, playing Hallelujah to sold-out arenas. Royalties from covers supported him in his final years. Critics celebrated his genius. Jeff Buckley achieved posthumous recognition as one of his generation's most important artists. Grace went platinum. His influence shaped countless singers. His version of Hallelujah became synonymous with the song itself. Two voices, separated by a generation, united by a single song. Leonard Cohen's spiritual quest gave the world Hallelujah. Jeff Buckley's earthly passion made it immortal. Both artists achieved what every creator dreams of, their art outliving them, speaking to souls they'll never meet, proving that the greatest songs don't belong to their writers. They belong to everyone who finds truth in their lyrics and beauty in their melody. In the end, Hallelujah became exactly what Cohen intended, a song that embraces the whole mess of human experience, sacred and profane, spiritual and sensual, broken and beautiful. A perfect hallelujah for an imperfect world. What other songs do you think deserve to have their stories told? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more Untold Music Legends episodes that reveal the incredible stories behind your favorite music.
Reach the peak, but what remains when the applause fades? Hit subscribe to uncover the stories behind the legends of music. This is Untold Music Legends.